The people that have scaled the fastest are the people who had one offer, one way of selling it, and they just rinsed and repeat with extreme consistency for a long period of time.
Hello, and welcome back to the Blissful Mompreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Christina Hall, and I am so grateful you're tuning in today. Today, I have the privilege of speaking with Khairy Varre, a powerhouse in the world of business strategy and leadership. Khairy is a business growth strategist who helps 7- and 8-figure CEOs build self-led, high-performing teams, allowing them to scale with ease. As the host of the Mastery Matrix podcast, she dives deep into what it takes to achieve world-class greatness, sharing insights on mindset, productivity, and personal mastery. Beyond business, she's also a dedicated martial arts student and trainer, bringing discipline and resilience into everything she does. Welcome, Khairy. It's so nice to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here today.
Absolutely. I can't wait. I can't wait to dive into all the things.
So, how did you become a business growth strategist?
All right. So the short story is when I was probably 18, 19, I had no idea what I wanted to do. But if there's one thing that I learned very quickly is that I love to learn. And my goal was to, yes, have success, but I wanted to do it in a way that allows me to learn in the fastest way possible. So I decided very young at that age that I would not work for one company. I would work with multiple companies at the same time. And that was going to be then through consulting, I learned, right? And so pretty much right out university, I initially got a job for 2 years as a project manager for a software company because my background is in business and tech. But those 2 years were simply because I was going after this one specific employer that I knew was the only person that I knew who not only had a consulting firm, but his employees worked remote, which back in 2007 it was not something that most people knew about, right? But that was part of my vision for my life. I knew I wanted to be location independent. So the 2 years that I was running after him every single month for him to hire me, I was working at that software company. But then as soon as I started with him, that was in 2010, I think. I've been doing business strategy since then. And I love it.
That is great and really creative that you thought like, okay, I'm just going to work for a number of different businesses and just learn as much as possible. And I'm sure you did learn a lot.
A little bit, yes.
And you worked in like a variety of different industries as well, or just tech at first?
No, all of them. I've worked in education. I've worked with companies like Ubisoft for video games. I've worked defense, education, medical, accounting firms, like even industries that I didn't even know existed, right? Or that people could make money, especially since the pandemic. I've seen a lot of those things where I was like, oh, I guess there's a market for this, right? And so I've really worked in all types of, mostly service-based though. What I would say is like mostly service versus products.
What is a common struggle that you see across all these various industries?
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, no, that's a great question. And it's funny because a lot of people will come to me and be like, my business is different because, right? And I'm different because, and what I've learned in 15 years of working with thousands of people at this point is at the end of the day, business is business is business, sales is sales, marketing is marketing. Human beings are human beings, right? And so at the end of the day, it's just realizing that the business is really all about you providing value to another human being. When we're talking about sales or marketing is about finding the human. Sales is about inspiring the human to work with you. The client delivery, service delivery is about delivering the service to that human. So it doesn't matter what industry it is. It's always the same things. So as long as we always go back to the fundamentals, we tend to make things very complicated no matter what industry. And as long as we go back to the fundamentals of my goal is to provide value to this person And in exchange, this is what I want, like in terms of getting paid or whatever. And we keep things simple. It is actually not difficult to scale anything, is what I've learned.
Yes, I love that you brought up keeping things simple, because I do think we have a tendency to overcomplicate things. And if we
Yeah.
could just focus on, I see so many clients that they have like a number of different services and they're trying to like juggle all these different things. But if you could just focus on one that you deliver extremely well, that's going to be so much easier to scale than all these different, things that you're trying to do.
Absolutely. And when I look at, because over the past several years, I've specialized in helping more experienced business owners. I've worked with all levels, right? But the past several years, people who are making 2 to 25 million, and some of them now have been working with them for 5 years, from the moment they were making like 50K to now they're making multi-millions, right? And what I will tell you is that the people that have scaled the fastest are the people who had one offer, one way of selling it, and they just rinsed and repeat with extreme consistency for a long period of time. Those have been the people, and those are still the people that sustain their success for a long time, that are able to do it without killing themselves in the process, and that are able to then have team members continue the process for them, because there is consistency and there is mastery. So the simplicity is really everything.
Absolutely. Now you mentioned, having a team and kind of building up your team. So what are some of the principles to, because our clients are primarily women that either have no team or a very small team. So how do you recommend kind of training your team and building your team? What are kind of the important principles?
Yeah. Yes. Definitely there's an order to it. And some of the common mistakes, before I answer your question, some of the common mistakes that I've seen people do is slapping team members on tasks they don't want to do, or bringing in team members for like little bits and pieces of their process, and then try to manage all of that over a period of time. So there is an order, and you want to be focused on, as you're bringing team members on, you're having them replace you in certain elements where you're going to be able to buy back some of your time, right? One of the books that I love about this concept, Dan Martell, if you haven't read the book and you're going on mat leave, definitely get the book and you can read that when you get a chance, or listen to it. I know when I was nursing my babies, I was listening to audiobooks all the time, but Buying Back Your Time by Dan Martell is an excellent book on that. The way that I like to coach clients is, first, get some type of an assistant who helps you with all the things. Somebody who's going to help you with email, with social media, maybe with client onboarding, with all the things, but as a second mini you, right? And then after that, it potentially will be somebody to help you on either the sales side or the client delivery side. Like, depending on the business, it will depend what works best. In some types of businesses where the sale, depending on the ticket that you're selling at, is it a high ticket, is it low ticket, etc. It might be easier to go straight to a salesperson that helps you bring in a volume of people. In other cases, especially if you're doing high ticket, you're probably going to keep the sales to yourself for a little bit longer and hire somebody to help on this client delivery side, right? So, but first, some type of an assistant on everything operations admin, then client delivery, sales, marketing as well. That's like second step, depending. And then the rest will be more on the financials and everything else. Assistants first. Most of your people I know would benefit from at least having an assistant who can help on all the things as a support.
Absolutely. And it makes a lot of sense because, you mentioned that whole concept of buying back your time. Typically, those administrative tasks are like lower level, as far as cost is concerned. So you want to pass those responsibilities off to someone else to free up your time to focus on those higher leverage tasks. So totally makes sense, the order. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, absolutely. And it's just very important to not delegate things too prematurely, especially your sales. I've seen people delegate their marketing and sales too quickly because they did not want to do it. And that typically doesn't work out. You want to delegate something that's already working and that's working well, and that you can train somebody else to replicate.
Mm-hmm.
Until then, you need to keep that stuff.
What are like some training principles that are really important?
Yes. Okay. Great question. So, as I mentioned, the first thing is to have something that works, right? You want to set whoever you're bringing on for success. If you're bringing on somebody, and this is unfortunately something I've seen a lot of business owners do, you're bringing on somebody into a very chaotic system and expect them to resolve everything for you. It is not fair, and it is also not realistic. So you want to have a system that already works that they can then implement and do more of. So have a system that works, that's documented. Even if it's not documented, but it's working, as you're training them, they can document it for you. So I often tell my clients, bring them on and have them, as they do the steps and they're shadowing you doing it for a period of time, they're documenting everything. And that means not only the process, but templates and everything that will reduce errors, basically. And you also want to, when you hire them, do not abdicate power completely right off right off the gate, which is another mistake I see people do. They hire a sales team member or a marketing person. They're like, okay, I don't need to look at this anymore. I don't need to touch this anymore because I hate it. And that is the fastest way to end up with something you don't want, because this person is new. They don't know your way of thinking, your values, maybe 100% yet. They don't do things the way you would. You want to be with them and to mentor them over a serious period of time. And the more they're close to your client, the closer they are to your clients, the more you really want to spend time with them and then shadowing you. So have a process, spend time training them, and don't abdicate your power off the gate. Like, even when you give them the responsibility, you want to have checks and balances. You want to have metrics so that you can verify that things are going the way that you want them to.
Absolutely. So you mentioned one way you do that is through metrics, right? To make sure. What other ways do you recommend kind of staying involved in, in overseeing things until you're totally ready to let it go?
Yeah. The best way, which is how we've done it for years. And even when I was in corporate and I had my team, it's one-on-ones. Having one-on-ones, let's say with your exec assistant, a one-on-one with your salesperson when you have one, or the person who's delivering for your clients, where you're spending time with them, looking at what are they currently working on, what are even their goals and what they want to accomplish through this job working with you, what's standing in their way, what's difficult right now that you can help support them on, right? Like, it's conversations. It's just conversations. It's talking to the humans. Just talk to the humans. And that includes your team. So when you have even one person working with you, you want to make sure that you're spending that time with them to be able to understand what's going on. And the more hours or the more full-time they are, the more crucial this is. When you have people working with you just a fraction of the time, it's a little bit different because you're just one part of their portfolio. But for anybody who's looking to grow something that they can depend on over a long period of time, I do want you to consider getting a couple of people to the point where they can be with you full time, even if they start part time. But with that intention, it will make things easier and build more freedom for you versus having some contractors. So I know I diverged a little bit from your answer, but it makes me just think of something super crucial, especially if you are a mom or a mom-to-be and you're trying to build freedom through this business. Having just contractors will actually make things harder for you. So you want to think about, how do I get even a couple of people to work for my business full time and build this business to where it can support all of us, is going to be your fastest path to freedom.
That's great. That's a really important distinction. What's a common mistake that you see business owners make when they step away from their business?
A big mistake that I see people do where there's a couple, one is they don't have a way for sales to continue even while they're not there. Sales are the lifeblood of your business. If there is no new cash coming in, then you come back and it's stress. So if you're going to be away, whether it is on mat leave or a vacation with your children or, a honeymoon or whatever that is, how can you ensure that sales continue to come in? And it might be that for a period of time, you do something a little bit different to make that happen. But that is a really, really important one. And then the other piece is just having, especially when we have team members. Now, if we don't have team members, it's a bit different. It's harder to do. But when you have team members, is setting them up so that they know exactly what to do in that period of time that you're not in, to where they can help you create some type of growth. A lot of business owners feel like once they're out, like nothing can happen. But I've seen many business owners where life hit, whether it is, they lose somebody or they have to go on mat leave or whatever that is. And their team, even if it's one person or two people, just step up to the plate and actually make the business grow while they're out. So it's just important to remember that that is possible and it's possible for you. And it's just about you creating that plan intentionally, because no one else really will do it for you, right? So make sure that there's sales coming in and make sure that you're setting your team up to be able to do the thing even without you there and actually grow the business. That's going to make you think very creatively. I was actually talking to a client yesterday, Christina, and it was a great example. Unfortunately, her husband passed away a year ago. And so she had to be away from the business because she just needed to take care of herself, right? And it was longer than she expected. And she said, Khairy, it's crazy. When I came back, I realized I only needed to work 10 hours a week because they had become so good at doing all the things without me. And now I had to rethink what my role is within the business. And so now she's focusing more on the visibility and growing the brand, which is amazing, which is exactly what a business owner should be doing. But her small but mighty team, they just took over and they were able to actually make the sales and do all of those things for her, right? So that's how I want you to think about this, but we don't have to wait until big events happen. Like that's something we can start intentionally today.
That's a beautiful story. And just it shows that when you do put all that work in early on, like you said, make sure you're hiring. I always say on the podcast, like hire with your mission and values, like at the forefront. I find that to be such a game changer. When I started doing that, the people that I attracted and started hiring were just a different caliber. And then they are able, like if something were to happen unexpected, they have the tools that they need to step up and like grow the business in your absence. And then how beautiful that she was able to return and like redefine her role.
Yes, I thought that was the most amazing part of all of this. Yes, they were great that they stepped up so quickly and so creatively, but the fact that she could come back and be like, oh my God, like I am not as needed as I thought. And now I have 30 hours or, however many hours she wants to work additional to actually grow the business, but by staying in my zone of genius. I thought that was phenomenal.
Yeah. And so humbling because I deal with a lot of clients where they're so worried about stepping away and losing control. And it's like, and I try to delicately tell them, like, it's okay, everything will be okay. And even though it feels like there aren't other people that can handle this, like, trust me, there are people that maybe could even do it better than you. And that's okay,
Yes, 100%. I tell people, like, either it's not going to be done as well, but it's still going to be 80% done, which is all your people need, or you're going to find people who can do this one thing much better than you do. Both cases work and both cases are necessary if you truly want to enjoy your life as you're building a business.
Yes, it's so demanding of running a business, so you really do need that support, especially as you start growing a family.
Yes.
Motherhood is a whole other
That's a whole other
challenge.
business on its own.
It's a
Yes.
whole other business. So speaking of which, I know you are also a mother. So how do you juggle, the entrepreneurship with being a mother?
Honestly, we take it sometimes week by week, sometimes it's hour by hour, sometimes it's day by day. Honestly, it is never perfect. I won't pretend that there is any balance in anything, but there's a couple of things that I do on a regular basis, and I actually redid it just this weekend as I was coming back from my trip in Florida. Is I have a couple strategies that help me at least, prioritize things the right way. One is I work everything in 90-day sprints. And that's since 2015. I had my first baby in 2010, second one in 2016. But in the midst of leading teams of consultants and, having kids at home, I'm also a martial artist. So I was also teaching and learning martial arts. I just have so many other things than just work, right? That are super, super important to me. And so the way that I manage all of those things is by prioritizing in 90-day sprints. So I will sit and look at, okay, the next 90 days, what is super important for me on my personal side, family-wise, our finances, the business, etc. And just identify 1 to 2 things per category. And that is all I'm focusing on for that over 90 days. And I find that by doing this, it's allowed me over the years to accomplish so much more than most people around me. People are like, how do you do it all? It's like I'm literally just focusing on one thing in an area at a time. And I just do it over 90 days. Instead of looking at the whole year, I'm just looking at, okay, the next 3 months, how am I moving forward in this one category? You do that 4 times a year in different categories, you're going to get a lot of stuff done, right? And so that is how I've done is like redoing my calendar then every 90 days with those elements. And it's not always the same pieces that I work on or the same categories, but it feels like life is moving forward in all of these different ways all the time. So that is one thing that I know works for me. We homeschool. So the second piece has been just getting support in all different ways. So I don't do everything. One of my key things from the very beginning was how do I increase my revenue so that I can hire the best team around me? And the team is not just at work. When I'm looking at my health, I have a coach for that now, right? I don't need to think about my training program and what I'm going to eat and all of those things. It's stuff that I've built over time. Did I have this even 5 years ago? I did not. I built it in to the point where I can now do that, right? So I have somebody for my meals and my exercise. I have somebody who helps me even on the personal finance side because I was like, we need to get this to the next level. At home, I have somebody who comes and clean. It's all of those little things that if you can just visualize them, because I don't come from a place where all of that was given or easy or affordable, but it was a priority, right? Even my kids are homeschooled, but now they have a tutor that comes at home also 3 days a week that helps me with some of that stuff. So I don't do all of it alone, right? So it's like, what would be your ideal team that you would need around you to help free up as much space as possible? And that really know how much would it cost for you to get there. In my case, I actually relocated to make that easier to Portugal, right? We don't live in Canada anymore. We're in Portugal on purpose. So if you know what your plan is and what you want to achieve, like start looking at, okay, what decisions do you need to make in order to make that possible? But it is feasible and available.
You just gave so much helpful information. That is all gold. I love the 90-day sprints. Something I actually started doing just this year. And I did a whole podcast episode right at the start of the year all about it. So I love that concept. And it has really made such a difference for me as well.
Huge.
Yeah. Because, in the past, I would always look at the entire year and choose like 5 or 6 things that I would focus on, but I found I didn't get as much accomplished because I just kind of was jumping from one thing to another. So I love that. And then again, you like hiring that support. I mean, it really goes back to that whole idea of buying back your time.
Yes, 100%. And it was just intentional and over time. There's still elements of my support team that I want to hire. I'm not there yet, but I know it's going to happen just by taking, one decision at a time.
And Khairy, how can our audience find you and learn more about you?
Absolutely. I think the easiest way is my own passion project, which is my podcast, the Mastery Matrix podcast with Khairy Varre. It's everywhere you listen to podcasts. And in it, I dive not only into business strategy, but also the mental, the paradigm shifts that we need to have in order to create and sustain success over time and really create a life that we're obsessed with. So the Mastery Matrix podcast is the place for that.
Wonderful. And we will place a link to your podcast in the show notes.
Perfect. Love it.
Khairy, thank you again for coming on.
This was great. Thank you so much. And again, just remember all of the stuff that you want and desire is there. It's so important to just take some time sometimes and think about what it is that we want to create so that we keep that top of mind and we make the right decisions that are aligned with it over time. That's how we make really big changes.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Blissful Mompreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a fellow mompreneur who might benefit from the advice. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It helps this podcast reach more amazing women just like you. Thank you again for being here, and until next time, keep pursuing your bliss.